Did you do your homework? I hope so. If not, it's okay. I won't judge. Maybe you're not totally comfortable with coding or, dealing with Linux that much yet. If so, just watch how I did it. Let me show you my solution on the previous exercise of aggregating HTTP status codes over a 5-minute window with a slide interval of 5 seconds. All right, let's have a quick look at my solution here. So I'm going to pull this up in an editor so it's a little bit prettier to look at. And I'm just going to highlight the changes that I made from the original Spark Flume Python script. So two things that changed. One was this extract function up here, our map function that we're using to extract the information that we care about from the access log lines. And you can see it's a little bit simpler. All we're doing is extracting the status field this time instead of request. And since status only contains one field, we don't need to split that up into subfields. So we can just return that status field as is if it exists. If not, we just don't return anything. So apart from changing the names of variables and functions to better fit what we're doing, the only other change really is changing that 1 to a 5 here, because I said I wanted a 5-second slide interval instead of a 1 second. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I changed this map function to extract the status codes and change the variable names to make more sense. So it's status codes and status counts now, for example. But apart from that, it's the same technique. We're just transforming each status code entry into that status code in the number 1. We do a reduce by the key to count up all those ones to get a count of each status code over that sliding window of 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes, with a 5-minute slide interval. And there's nothing terribly challenging going on here. I just wanted you to get your hands dirty and get a gut feel of what changing these values does. And if you want to fiddle with it further, I certainly encourage you to do so. Let me show you that it actually works. So let's close out of this. I already set up 3 windows logged into my sandbox. So first thing we're going to do is actually run that. And if you want to get that from media.sundog-soft.com/Hadoop, I saved it in there for you as sparkflumeexercise.py. But the changes are pretty simple. So let's go ahead and kick that off. So now my Spark streaming job is running and just waiting for data to get pushed to it. Let's wait for that to start chugging away. And because I changed the slide interval to 5 seconds, you'll see that this is only ticking along every 5 seconds instead of every 1 second. So you can see that had a real effect. Let's start Flume itself in the same way that we did before, so no changes to that. We're still using Flume in the same manner of monitoring that log, that spool directory, and feeding it into Avro, which is then being listened to by our Spark streaming job. So let's get Flume running. All right, and finally, let's put some data in there. So let's say copy access log.txt into spool, and we'll call it log, 30.txt. Something with the spooldir source in Flume, you have to make sure you don't use the same file name twice, otherwise you get an error. So let's dump that in there and see if Flume pushes it into Spark Streaming, and we should see our tallies by status code up here once that gets processed. Sure enough, there we have it. So in this interval, going over the past 5 minutes, and you can see that took a couple of intervals to actually get all the way through. All right, it looks like it's finally stabilized, so we've processed everything now. So we have 64,961 200 status codes that indicate success, 10,714 server errors, which actually reflects all those hackers I was talking about earlier trying to bring down my server, nasty, nasty people, and some redirects going on as well. And honestly, I'd have to look up what these other codes mean, but they don't come up very often. So there you have it, working. Let's do what we did before and actually dump it in a second time to, log31.txt, just to watch these numbers double because we put the same data in twice. And again, there we go. Cool. So it works. There you have it, our modified Spark streaming script. I hope you had the same result. If not, feel free to study my results in the video here and compare it to what you did and give it another try. And with that, let's move on to our next topic.